Hi everyone, it's Amy and welcome to the Happy Stepmom. I want to talk to you today about the 5 habits that I started doing to reset my stepmom life. There was a point in my life where I was going a little bit crazy and dealing with all of the issues that come along with blended family life. And I had to stop and reset and think about the things that I could do to bring more happiness to my life. I'm well aware that happiness is controlled by yourself. Everything inside of me, I can control it regardless of my external circumstances. I'm the one that can control my happiness. So I put pen to paper and I decided, what am I going to do to reset my stepmom life? Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm looking for subscribers. This is my very first video. I'm going to try to upload 1 video a week, so I'd really like to have you there for the next one. So please click subscribe. So the first habit that I tried was focusing on what I could control. If you're anything like me, you take great comfort in attempting to plan out and control everything in your life. Obviously, as a stepmom, you know that that isn't the easiest thing to do. You don't always control everything that goes on in your life when you have kids that live in 2 different homes. So I decided to make a choice to focus on what I could control, to live in the present rather than worry about what had just happened or what's going to happen in the future because of the changes that I couldn't control. One of the things, are certain people's behaviors. You can't control your stepchildren's or the ex-wives or if you have an ex-husband, their behavior at all. Like you can't, and you can't let it get to you. So I figured out that I wasn't going to be able to stop it or change the behavior of these people. So I decided to just accept that who they are, and deal with it. Why should I let that and those people control my own happiness? So what I decided to do was just focus on being the best stepmom that I could be. I accepted the fact that despite my best efforts at teaching the kids manners or teaching them to do things the way I needed them done or I want them done, I decided to let it go. They aren't going to change who they are, especially when they live in 2 different homes and they're getting a different set of rules in one home than they are in the other home. So you can only control what happens in your own home, right? So if they're getting taught to behave a certain way in the other home, there's not much you can do. You can try and counteract it, but the kids are going to be who they are, and you can't control that. So despite my best efforts, I just learned to accept that it was going to end up the way it's going to end up. That doesn't mean that I'm going to give up being the best stepmom that I could be. I am going to still try and implement rules and the best I could do to raise these children to be functional, well-behaved adults once they get to that age. So the second habit that I started was to start saying no. I have 2 biological children who are older, they're 16 and 18, and 3 stepkids who are 9, 11, and 15, who were always asking me to go to their activities, to take them shopping for clothes, to go to different events, which is a good problem to have. Don't get me wrong. I love that they want me there, and I love that they ask me to go. But there's 3 stepkids, and there's a lot of activities. So I was going to all of them, and because I felt bad for saying no when they asked, can you come to my hockey game? I really want you to come. And I would say, of course, yes, because I wanted them to see that I was there, I was involved, and that I appreciated that they wanted me there. What I learned, though, is that I was doing way too much for my stepkids. And because they're younger, like 9, 11, and 15, I was doing so much for them because they were so involved and they were younger and needed me and my husband there. My own kids are 16 and 18, so they're teenagers and they don't necessarily want mom at everything, but I needed to step back and go, you know what, my own kids need me too. So I started saying no to my stepkids. Not all the time. I go half the time of what I used to. But I have a good balance now of going to some events and not going to others. They always ask me too when they need something, and they always come to me instead of their dad. So, and I think that was because my husband's very strict. So a lot of the times he'll say no right away. So they don't want to go to him because they fear that he'll say no. So I had to step back and go, you know what, to my husband, you need to start answering them and doing stuff for them. So I just started saying no. So if one of them asked me to take them to the store because they needed a specific outfit for a school event the next week, I would get my husband to do it. I have to say no once in a while. I can't be in every place. We have 5 kids altogether, so I'm a busy girl. I work full time. I do this on the side, and sometimes you just have to say no and get everyone involved. I've found that this has helped reduce some of the resentment that I was feeling because I was doing so much. I started to get resentful of my husband, even though he was busy too. He would do a lot of the work, but I needed him to be more involved with his own kids, so I could step back and be involved with my own kids. So it has helped with the resentment. I don't get resentful as often anymore. I say no, just say no. And you know what? At first, I would say no, and I felt guilty about it. You can't feel guilty. You got to say no, and they're okay. The kids are okay if I say no and I don't go. Yeah, sure, they look upset when I first say no, but they're fine when they get back. They know that I'll go to another event. So don't feel guilty. The third habit was that I started scheduling more time for me, literally scheduling it in my planner. With 5 kids, we have so many activities, and I was going to everyone, and even my husband plays hockey. So I would watch the kids while he was at hockey, or I would even go to his game and watch. But there was nothing for me. I don't do anything except for yoga once in a while I was doing, but there wasn't much time for me because it would always be last on the priority list, my own list. So I started scheduling in time. At first, I was scheduling in time just to read a book at home, but it always ended up where even though I was behind a locked door, the knocks would come from the kids looking for me. They wanted this or that. So now I started scheduling time outside of the house. Even if I want to read, I go down the road to the coffee store or the bookshop, and I read a book there. That way I'm sure there's no interruptions. They text me, they try, but I don't answer. It is so important that you take care of your own emotional needs before taking care of anyone else, including your husband. And when you make your wellness your number one priority, you are actively making an effort to be happy. So don't forget yourself when scheduling activities, when you have a planner. I have a paper planner. I'm one of those old-fashioned girls. I write everything down. So I actually put time in here for me. It is so important. Don't forget to do it. Habit number 4 is I have eliminated, this is a tough one, but it's so important. I have eliminated, I didn't lower, I have eliminated any expectations I have of other people. We are so often disappointed when other people don't behave the way we expect them to behave. Maybe our expectations are unrealistic. So I learned to accept the behavior of other people, my stepchildren, the ex-wife, anyone else, and I am no longer frustrated or disappointed when they behave a certain way. I can't expect them to behave the way I think they should behave. They're different people. So you have to, you could say lower your expectation or have realistic expectations, but honestly, if you eliminate your expectations, you cannot or will not be disappointed. And I know that is one of the hardest things to do. It's so natural to have expectations of other people. I'll tell you what helped me. I found this book, and it's called The Expectation Hangover. And it's not specifically written for blended families or stepmoms, but it definitely, you can relate to it. It's all about what happens when you have expectations, and though they aren't met by people, behaviors, whatever, and then you get this hangover, which is disappointment, resentment, anger, all of these emotions that you feel because somebody didn't behave a certain way. So I highly recommend this book. It's by Christine Hassler. Changed my life. I refer to it often. I've highlighted it. I have tabs. It's an amazing book. Definitely, if you are a stepmom, get one of these books. It will help. My 5th and final habit was to set some boundaries. And I'm sure if you are a stepmom that you've heard this before. You need to, if you are in a blended family, you need to have some solid boundaries in your life. Setting boundaries is so important in a blended family. I'll give you an example of a boundary that we set. Dinner time is a great example where the 7 of us, the 5 kids, myself and my husband, would sit down for dinner, and we would talk about how our day went and all kinds of different things. But what was happening was my stepkid's mother would call during dinner, which is, it's fine. She can call and talk to the kids, but I didn't want her calling during dinner because it was like when the kids were on the phone with her, it was like she's at my dinner table. And I didn't want her at my dinner table. So the phone was getting passed back and forth between the three kids. Same thing with my ex-husband. He would call to talk to the kids. But we don't let that happen anymore. So during dinner, the phone gets unplugged. There are no phone calls. There was a couple instances in the beginning where, the cell phone got called because the cell phone was in the pocket. So we got rid of that too. So no cell phones at the dinner table. So now we enjoy a nice dinner, just the seven of us with no interruptions, especially from the exes. When you do set boundaries too, it's important that there are consequences if they're crossed. So it can be very difficult when you're setting boundaries with other people when they don't like the boundaries that you've set. But you need to stay strong in those boundaries. So another example is that when, if your kids get dropped off by their mother and you don't want their mother in your house when they drop them off, you can say to her, you know what, you can drop the kids off. They can get out of the car on their own. They can walk into the house. You don't need to come inside my home to drop off the kids. If she continues to do so, then you need to set a boundary and say, you know what, this isn't working. Let's change locations. As when we transition kids, we'll pick up the kids at a local coffee shop or something like that. And that way she's not coming into your home. It's a really good idea to have the conversation with your husband on what boundaries you feel need to be set, and if there's any that he feels need to be set. You have to be on the same page when setting these boundaries, because if you're not, there could be some issues, problems that come up, and you don't want that. You want to make sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone understands what the boundaries are and what the consequences are if they're crossed. So that's it. Those are the 5 habits that I've implemented in my life, my blended family life, to reset my life as a stepmom. And it has made a huge difference in the happiness that I have inside of me. And in my life, there's a lot less distractions. Again, the expectations, having no expectations is a huge one. I don't get as disappointed or frustrated or resentful as much anymore. If ever. Like really, I'm quite happy and quite content with my life. There are challenges that we face all the time in a blended family. We still have those challenges, especially as our kids get into the teen years. But again, if you implement those habits, I think it'll help the ride be smoother, on your stepmom journey. So I hope you come back for the next video. Like I said, please subscribe and hit that notification button, and I would love to see you again next week.